was second at NXR Southwest as a ninth grader in 2021. So real veteran. And her PR in the mile, 4:46.63, I think that belies actually her abilities. I'm expecting her to be very tough in this race and to deliver a very good performance.
Hardest thing you got to do is make sure you're in order of your bib number as Zariel moves from lane 2 over into lane 3 and showing the footwork here in the final steps before she gets to the start line. But let's meet the field here. On the inside we'll go from the outside in. You mentioned Keegan Edwards out of Highlands Ranch, Colorado. Was 7th in the high voltage mile in Chicago. Zariel Macchia out of Shirley, New York, now all-time number 9 in the 1,000. Ruby Immels out of Bismarck was in Idaho just a year ago, but has moved to North Dakota and is performing well there. And then Ava Gerald and Mackenzie Shelley round out the field. So Pennsylvania, Indiana, North Dakota, New York, and Colorado really a reflection of the interest this has become nationally to get a chance to race on the circuit. There's the start list. One additional runner there on the outside will be our pace setter for this group that is scheduled to go at an even 9:25 pace, and that is just off Sofia Rodriguez's U.S. number 1 this year of 9:22.11.
Paul, also, Ruby Immels, you don't often get to win a state cross-country title in 2 different states and still only be a sophomore. She won the Idaho State Cross-Country Championships in 2023 and won the North Dakota State Championships in 2024 last fall. And, of course, we know her dad, Corey Immels, who won the 1991 Foot Locker Cross-Country Championships and was a 3:59.70 miler. So young Ruby Immels, only a sophomore. And maybe if they can move to another state, she can get 3 different states as a cross-country champion. But she's a very solid.
Turn the Immels into witness relocation candidates. I think they, and we saw her brother was in the previous race just a moment or two ago. So all right, we're off and running here in this girls high voltage 3000 at the circuit stop in Boston with Skelly, Gerald, Immels, Macchia, and Edwards. And that is Zariel Macchia wearing that hip number 4, future BYU Cougar. No change in coaching staff there. As you mentioned, the change in Colorado, and no need to change the coaching at all with everything really just humming like I don't know what the right car analogy would be, but everything's going really well at Provo right now.
Indeed, and a couple of great 3,000-meter performances by Lexi Halliday-Lowry and Ruby Chamberlain last year for BYU coach Diljit Taylor, who has just done a marvelous job, the reigning NCAA cross-country champions on the women's side. Hey, and Ed Eyestone doesn't do too bad on the men's side either. So, they are humming, as you said.
So first couple of laps here, 38:31, followed by a 37:58. That is Adeline Fleming doing the pace-setting duties along with those race lights, again, that will stay on throughout this race and try to pace them through to that 9:25.
And they're right on it, right on 9:25 pace. And as you pointed out, young Sofia Rodriguez, part of the Rodriguez sisters that have been so strong in cross country, especially 9:22.11 at the UW Preview, which again was on an oversized track. This one is on a 200-meter oval. But I think whatever happens, we're going to get at least the number 2 performance in the country, if not number 1, and then whatever falls in behind that. And Keegan Edwards right there, right on Macchia's shoulder. And Ruby Immels right there, also kind of hanging in there, but it may be a break here a little bit. We're seeing Macchia and Edwards pulling away, and now Immels gets past.
2 minutes, 31 seconds, 2.5 miles, and on that 5-minute pace.
2:31 for 800, Paul. So about 5:02 mile pace, still right on that 9:25 3,000 pace.
You know, Tom, we talked about the end of the season leading to these national caliber championships, and what it does for, same thing we see with, Foot Locker, Nike Cross Nationals in the cross country, where these, best of these individual states get to toe the line. But it has become more common than not that those races aren't just happening at the end of the season. These kids love to race, and they're willing, just like a travel ball team in baseball or softball, to get on a plane and go find a good track and race against the best.
I think that's a really good point, and that's what's great about events like this on the circuit, where you can travel to different cities and meet high-caliber competition. And it is indeed a circuit for races. Let's not forget that Mackenzie Skelly is right in the mix here. Skelly is young, 8th grader, William Penn Charter. She's the 2024 Pennsylvania Independent Schools cross-country champion and 4:51.58 miler, undefeated in 3 cross-country races in 2024. And she's right in there with the elders.
And she was one of those East Coast kids that came west during the track season last year, going out to Seattle to compete in the Brooks PR, and was the runner-up in that mile race. So now a little bit closer to home, but still facing some top-flight competition here as they continue to click off the laps here. This will be 1,400 meters, nearing halfway in this 3,000. The pace setter is now off, and Makia looks over to the outside, but for the moment has the lead with 8 laps to go.
I remember watching Zariel Makia, Paul, and you might too, in NXR New York, and she was just somebody that would do enough at that particular race to win. And I think she's backing off and saying, okay, 8th grader, you go ahead and take the pace. I've had enough. And now Skelly moving a little bit to the front, although now Makia going back again, a little bit of a surge. Meanwhile, Keegan Edwards is tucking right in there, but the pace has certainly slowed down. 2 laps of 38 seconds, and now it's a tactical race, Paul. It's which we love, We love seeing real racing, and that's what this is going to be.
So 7 laps to go. That one, the slowest lap of the race so far, 39.22, and you can see it visually as that pace light. In fact, the one that is all the way to the left side of your screen is actually the one that was being paced at 9:25, and now they're behind that second set of lights too. But still, this is a hot pace where only 7 high schoolers have gone under 9:40 this year. So
I'm curious as to why Makia is running on the outside of the lane there, and why she, this is kind of an interesting situation. You usually don't want to cede. You don't want to give up inches, much less yards. And now she's kind of surged back into the front here. Maybe she was just kind of softening them up, and now she's really you can tell she's elongated her stride. She's trying to break these two. Now, Edwards, that's the key here. Does Edwards cover this move? Edwards starting to move up on the shoulder of Skelly. But certainly Makia is saying, okay, I'm going to take this race out now. And she may slow down again. It could be a classic 70s, early 80s Kenyan surge, fall back kind of race.
Well, certainly a bigger bounce on the track now by Makia. She does put a little bit of pace in, about a second faster on that last lap to 38.14 as they go through 2K and 6:23.07. Final third of the race now here with Edwards in second and Skelly in third.
So, Paul, we're on about 9:35 pace, which would make this, if we continue this, 6th fastest time in the country. But I have a feeling we're going to see some kicking action going on. And Blair Bartlett, who's at 9:32.29, could certainly be threatened here for the top 5. But it's a very intriguing race. I don't have 800 credentials for any of these 3, so I have no idea who really has the great leg speed. But it looks like Skelly falling back a little. Oh, Edwards took a bad little step off the track there. She's got herself back together again, but she's got some work to do now because there's not a lot of time left in this race, and she's got to really narrow that gap with Makia, who is a very strong runner and a seasoned runner.
So 7.5 minutes now elapsed on the clock as we get into the closing stages of this race. This will be the completion of lap 12 of 15. So 3 laps to run. Last lap back under 38 seconds, 37.88. So Makia really trying to turn the screws now here in the last couple of laps.
And one thing in watching Makia, you can't really tell by her facial expression how hard she's working, because I've always thought this, in looking at her earlier, oh, she's gonna fall apart at any moment, because it really looks, the strain you can see on her face. That's just not the way she rolls. She don't look at that face for any signs of weakness, because she just runs with that sort of, looks like it's a little bit more effort than it truly is. Meanwhile, Edwards there still looking pretty good. And I wouldn't say that Makia's got this thing locked up at all. Now, Edwards has to negotiate around slower lapped runner did, as did Makia. But you can see Edwards starting to really drive now and trying to narrow that gap, Paul, and she is narrowing that gap.
Yeah, that last, 50 meters has completely changed the complexity of this race, and we'll see if Makia can respond here in the...
She's going now, Paul. She's driving.
Yeah, she did feel the footsteps behind her. She reaches the bell, 1 lap to go.
She really drove right there just before that bell. And she's an interesting runner to me. And because of these last couple laps that she's run, they're almost on pace. She just ran a 36.50, a 37.88, two 37.88s before then. And Edwards is still trying to narrow this thing down. So Makia's going to have to put in one more surge because Edwards is coming up.
Off the final turn, Makia shakes off the arms, now goes back to the arms, almost waits for Edwards to arrive, and she's not going to hold Edwards off as Edwards takes the victory here in the final strides. It'll be 0.04 of a second as Keegan Edwards makes it by the lane at the line. Final lap for Edwards, 36.16, and 9:31.69 is number 5 U.S. in 2025.
And Paul, I would imagine that Mackenzie Skelly, who took third, 9:37.69, that may be an age national record for an 8th grader, because that is really hoofing it. I was curious at the end there. Makia looked like she backed off a little bit. I don't know whether she knew that Edwards was that close or not, but she didn't attempt to really make a lean there, which surprised me a little bit.
Well, what was not surprising was another good quality high school competition in these high voltages that have done what we all expected they would do, deliver high quality performances. And here once again, Keegan Edwards comes from Colorado and will leave a high voltage champion, 9:31.69. Makia now also into that top 10. She was on the list coming into this race. She was 18th. She'll move up a bunch of places into that top 10. You see her shaking off here, coming off the final turn, and then a big look behind.
Yeah. I
think this is on the back stretch, or no, this is coming to 1 lap to go. And then
yeah, 1 lap to go.
Makia. And how many times do you see someone win out of lane 2?
Yeah, it was strange. It seemed like she eased up a little bit. Also, by the way, Paul, Skelly gets into the top 10 nationally this season as well at number 9 with that 9:37.69, which has to be an 8th grade record for 3,000 meters, I would imagine.
So Keegan Edwards maneuvers through that last lap to perfection and takes the win, and now she's with Keenan Gray.
All right, from 7th in Chicago at the circuit in the girls 2 miles just a couple weeks ago to winning here in the Boston circuit. How'd you pull off that last 100 meters? Because that was an amazing kick.
Yeah, I think I was just feeling really good, feeling the excitement, and I'm just so grateful to be here, so I let that gratitude push me.
What'd you learn from the first circuit race and some adjustments you made here for this last race here?
I think I learned to just trust myself and not get stuck in past or present or past or future thinking. Really embrace that present mindset and be in the moment.
Awesome. Really appreciate your time. Best of luck the rest of the indoor season.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Keegan. As you know, the other thing I noticed on that last stretch of the race too, Tom, was that the person holding the finish line tape was actually on the track in lane 2, and Makia had to go around her and went into lane 1. And you know, when it's only 0.04 of a second, the chaos of that finish could have been also a reason that she wasn't able to lean like she would normally do.
That's a really good analysis. I didn't even catch that. That is really that's